Hello, I'm John Shawcross. On Tuesday, March the 28th, there's going to be a town election. There will be 4 candidates running for the Board of Selectmen. In the next hour, you're going to meet those 4 candidates. They are Chuck Nurnberger, Roger Berman, Ellen Burkhart, and Peter Haley. The interview questions I'm going to be asking are very similar for each of the 4 candidates. However, there are some tailored questions which are based on a recent Winchester Star article. I hope you enjoy this program, and I hope it will help you decide which 2 candidates to vote for on March the 28th of the town election. Thank you. The first candidate to be interviewed is Chuck Nurnberger. Chuck has been a selectman for 6 years and is now running for his 3rd term. Welcome to WinCam, Chuck.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good. Now, I would like to start out with a few kind of questions about you and your family and life. Sure. in Winchester. Tell us a little bit about the various things you've done for the town.
Well, I've been active as a town meeting member since 1988. And as you know, I'm a selectman. I have been since 2000, but I've served on the Sanborn Reuse Committee, the Council on Youth, Bellino Park Committee, Sheffalo Park Committee, the Planning Board, Capital Planning Committee, Finance Committee. So I've been around.
You've done a lot.
I've done a lot, yeah.
And I think you went to school here in Winchester, didn't you?
Yes, I graduated in 1971. And I went to Northeastern for some time, but did not complete my degree work. And I guess when I'm finished with my service to Winchester, I'll probably go back and complete the degree work.
Hey, that's a great idea.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So, what do you do for a living?
Well, I'm a sales representative for Griffin Greenhouse Supply. It's a horticultural distribution company out of Tewksbury, and we sell pots and fertilizer and chemicals and things like that. So.
And whereabouts do you live in Winchester?
I live 200 Cross Street. That's the place I grew up. I bought the house from my mother when my father passed away in 1975, and I've lived there all my life. I'm a 4th generation Winchester resident.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's great.
There can't be too many people in Winchester who's 4th generation residents.
Well, there are a few, but not too
that
many. Not too many.
Yeah, and is there anything else? We just talked about a little bit about your background. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about you personally, or that you think the electorate might like to know about?
Well, I'm just an average guy trying to do the best I can, serving my hometown community, just trying to make it a better place for all of us to call home.
Okay, that's great. Now, the next group of questions is based on the Winchester Star interview of a week or so back, and I took some of those questions and worked them up into a follow-up.
Sure.
So. One of the things that you said was that the effectiveness of public officials should be measured by the positive impact they've made on the community. Would you comment something about your impact as a member of the Board of Selectmen?
Sure. If you don't mind, I'd like to go back a little bit further
Sure.
to the Planning Board. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that, you can run for elected office, but you really should plan on making some kind of a contribution. When I ran in 1997 for the Planning Board, I was not happy with the way Winchester, the direction it was going in, and I thought I could make a contribution. And in fact, from 1997 to 2000, I thought we were pretty successful. And I won't take all the credit, but I was certainly a member down there as vice chairman for 2 years and chairman in my last year. But we accomplished 3 or 4 very important things for the town of Winchester. We managed to pass on the floor of town meeting an adult use bylaw, which I think protects the citizens of Winchester. We passed the antenna bylaw, which prevents the
the antenna bylaw?
Antenna bylaw. That prevents these cell towers from going up in your neighborhoods. We have a light pollution bylaw, which, whenever there's commercial abutting residential neighborhoods, it's very important to control the light.
Does that apply to things like playing fields and the like?
It can, yes. Yeah. As a matter of fact, it does. And then, of course, the most successful thing I think we did was the rezoning of North Main Street into 2 sections, GBD2 and GBD3. And there had been like 3 or 4 attempts to do that within the last 20-25 years, and they were unsuccessful. So I'm pretty proud of what we accomplished in the 3 years I was down there. And as a member of the Board of Selectmen, I think we've been very successful in housing. For example, in the last 2 years, we've secured 6 affordable housing opportunities through the Selectmen's First-Time Homebuyers Program. Flooding and drainage has been our #1 priority since I got on the board, and I think we've been very successful with that. Last October, we had a 5-inch rainstorm in less than 24 hours without any real significant flooding. So we're on the right track, and we're making a lot of progress there. I think the override we passed a couple of years ago for our building stabilization to rehab and rebuild our 15 major buildings, that's a huge success. There aren't very many communities in Massachusetts that have that. So, you know, I think I have a pretty good track record and a lot of successes. I haven't done it by myself. I've been surrounded by some very talented people at the table with me. But yes, I think we've been successful. And I think it's important that if you get elected to a major board in town, you should really strive to make a difference.
Very good. Did you mention the Sanborn House and all that?
I
know
did.
You were involved with that.
I'm very interested and have been in the Sanborn House. And in fact, at the next Selectmen's meeting on March 6th, I think we're going to be signing the lease to the Historical Society. And that's been a long process. And I was chairman of the Sanborn Reuse Committee and very active on the floor of town meeting the night that we transferred the property from the school committee to the Board of Selectmen in order to move it to the next step, and that would be the lease agreement. And I made a pretty good argument, and town meeting supported my position or the Board of Selectmen's position. And so now, you know, here we are about ready to sign the lease agreement. So, yeah, that and the teen center, I'm very interested in that.
Right.
I hope that within the next 3 years, we should be able to get that up and running. So.
Great. Now, when you were interviewed with the Winchester Star, one of the things you said, and I'm sure nobody will disagree with this, is that one of the biggest issues facing the town is trying to maintain core services in the face of public safety, public health, and education. Would you say some more about you know, balancing these priorities?
Well, I think you recognize early on when you're a selectman that your responsibility and obligation is to all the citizens of Winchester. You know, the kids that go to school here, the seniors that are retired here, and your municipal workers, and everybody in between. So as a selectman, I think that it's important that you take a look at all of the citizens of Winchester and try to protect and enhance their needs as best you can. But as you know, through Prop 2.5 and the increasing school enrollments and the minimally funded state mandates, it's very difficult to fund some of these things. It's a challenge every year.
Now, one of the other things you said, which yeah, I kind of picked up on, was, and I guess I understand with your years of the family in the town, is you know, your family worked for the, what was it, DPW, and I just found myself wondering, you know, you must be in a difficult position sometimes when you're worrying about increasing taxes and possibly laying people off. How do you balance all those things in your mind?
Well, it is difficult. I mean, both my wife and I work. I have 2 jobs currently, and my youngest daughter, Anne Marie, is a junior at Assumption College, and the tuition's $34,000 a year. And you know, so I struggle sometimes to pay the bills just like everybody else. So it is difficult when I'm looking at the budgets for Winchester and the competing needs to balance that. But I think that my upbringing, my father being a patrolman here in Winchester, my mother being a school crossing guard, I really have an ability to recognize the full range of economic situations for people here in Winchester. So I think it gives me an advantage to really understand what it's like to make $30,000 a year and try to stay in Winchester.
Right.
It's difficult.
Okay, now we don't have a lot of time left, so I want to move on through these questions if I can. Now, one of the interesting things I thought recently was the vote on the town manager's budget, and you being a selectman cast your vote, and you cast your vote, I think I'm right in saying, against the town manager's budget. Would you care to talk about that decision? Sure.
Well, the meeting before we took that vote, I did a lot of thinking and presented a plan, a series of ideas and concepts to give the town manager some policy direction. As you know, the town manager is responsible for putting the budget together, and then it goes to the finance committee, and they do their thing with it. But through the town charter, the Board of Selectmen can give the town manager some policy direction. And what's very important to me was the use of reserves. Last year at the floor town meeting in the spring, we spent $1 million of non-reoccurring reserves, which means that money's gone. The town manager's budget contemplated using $2.5 million, and that leaves a balance of about $2 million for the 08 budget. And quite frankly, I think that the citizens of Winchester wanted us to tighten our belts a bit. And of course, then, you know, the school committee, Dr. Marini, made a compelling case to give more money to the schools. So I put together a plan. I thought it was well thought out. I didn't get the support I wanted at the table, but the fact of the matter is I thought that the town manager used way too much in reserves. There's a $1.8 million deficit in 08, and 09 is going to be even worse. And so my plan really contemplated reducing some services in the police department, fire department, funding the library at a kind of an even level to keep them certified, but then give the schools a little bit more money. In the last 5 years, 450 new children have arrived in Winchester school system, and they need teachers. And that's, you know, we're a victim of our own success here in Winchester.
Well, you know, I've thought of that myself.
Yeah.
Schools are good and people come to Winchester.
Exactly, exactly. And they need teachers. And so my plan also contemplated energy conservation. I wanted to reduce the energy budget by 10%. I wanted to reduce the transfer station budget by 10% through increased recycling. So I thought overall my plan had some balance. It seemed to be fair and reasonable. So.
And I listened to that particular discussion through WinCam, and I thought it was very interesting. And you may not have got the support you wanted, but there was a lot of interest in your proposals, I know that.
Well, it did prompt a lot of discussion and thoughtful debate at the table, and I think that I was successful in that way. I just didn't manage to convince my colleagues that my policy direction was the way to go. So.
Great. Just a quick question again about the Winchester Star. An interesting cartoon was printed showing the 4 candidates at the start of the race, and there was a couple of letters written about that. Do you have any comments about that, or have you any thoughts on it, or you just want to let it go?
No, I'll comment on it. I thought Ellen Burkhart's letter to the editor with regards to the cartoon was pretty much on target. I think if the Star is going to do that, they need to be mindful of who drew the cartoon and where it comes from. And they, as far as I know, I didn't read anywhere in the newspaper where they indicated that the man that drew the cartoon was actually supporting one of the candidates. So I think that was unfortunate. I also agree with Peter Haley. You know, we're all volunteers here. We work hard to do the best we can for the citizens of Winchester. And you know, although it was just a cartoon and I just kind of looked at it and shrugged it off, you know, it is freedom of speech, no question about it. But you know.
I suppose if you're in the political world, you get used to that kind of thing a little bit.
Yeah,
so.
I'm a little more thick-skinned than my wife. She gets nervous.
Does she?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, transfer station. Do you go to the dump, throw your trash? Or?
As a matter of fact, I just came from the transfer station, taking my rubbish to the belt.
You wear this fine suit to the transfer.
I dressed up for it.
They must have asked you a thing or two about that.
Yeah, well, they're a good group of guys over there. They work hard. The transfer station, I think, is a very important issue in the next 3 years. We've decided to keep the transfer station open. It needs to have some upgrades. Again, my plan that I put forward a couple of weeks ago to the Board of Selectmen really contemplated some recycling. We only recycle, I think, 14% here in Winchester.
And how does that compare with others?
I think most other communities are 20, 25, and 30%. So we don't do a good job recycling. And it would have meant some cultural changes here in Winchester. It would have, you know, more mandating type recycling. But that's how you control your cost.
Right.
And it's good environmentally. So
now. You know, I've always wished that I could deduct my cost of my transfer taxes from my annual tax return, but I guess we can't do that, right? With the $150, whatever we pay for our sticker, that's not deductible.
No, it's not deductible. And I guess you could do that, but that would put the entire system on the tax from operating, and I don't think we want to do that. I think that, you know, my philosophy is if you use it, you should pay for it. Right. What is unfair, I think, is that a household of 2 pay the same $150 sticker as a household of 5. Right. So we'll be looking at the pay-as-you-throw to complement the sticker.
I've got 1 minute left.
Sure.
Just like to ask you 2 more questions.
Sure.
I'll at least ask one question, then I'll let you have a word or two.
Sure.
Override. Do you think in the next 3 years, if you're re-elected, that you'll be voted to put an override before the electorate?
I think it's very likely that would happen. I tried to convince my colleagues the last time we called the question to have a menu system. It seems to me that if you give the voters an opportunity to choose which service they prefer to fund, and in many ways, if you're likely to vote for, say, a public safety override, you might also vote for a school override or DPW override or the library override. So it seems to me that if you're inclined to vote for an override, a menu system only lifts the boat higher out of the water. And so yeah, I think it's inevitable because the way we're structured here in Winchester, we're 6.5 square miles. It's a residential community. That's not going to change, not marginally.
Okay, Chuck, just one last thing.
Sure.
Have you anything else that you'd like to say to the electorate?
Well, you know, I'm running for my third term. I certainly, it's an honor for me to serve as a selectman, and I would like an opportunity to continue working on the important issues for Winchester, and I would ask for your support on March 28th.
Okay, I just hope everybody gets out and votes.
Absolutely.
No matter who they vote for.
Right, doesn't matter, just get out and vote.
The Winchester League of Women Voters is a nonprofit organization that promotes informed participation in all levels of government. We hold forums with political candidates and on issues like flood control. We register eligible voters at the high school, honor town employees at an annual lunch. Our members are women and men 18 years and up. Our activities are designed to fit busy lives.
Okay, now we have Roger Berman, who is perhaps best known for his work in Winchester on the Finance Committee. Roger, welcome to WinCam.
Thank you, John. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, now the first group of questions we have is about you and your life in the town and what you've done for the town and so on and so forth. Could you give us a little bit of a sense of your work for the town?
Sure. 24 years ago, my wife and I chose to live in Winchester and raise our family here. And in the early part of living in Winchester, I was involved with coaching my boys in sports, and then as they've grown older, I've had more time to volunteer to the town. I've served 11 years as a town meeting member, 6 years on the Finance Committee, 2 of those as chairman, and then on a number of other committees, including Fair Housing, the Selectmen's Budget Task Force, Capital Planning, Solid Waste Study Committee.
That's quite a record you've got there.
It's been fun.
So 24 years ago, so you didn't go to school here in Winchester. Where did you grow up?
I went to public school in Newton, attended George Washington University, and received an MBA from Dartmouth College.
Okay, so you still working in the business administration area, or what?
I do. Over 20 years ago, I founded and continue to own and manage a commercial real estate business in Boston.
Oh, okay, so you're a real estate person.
I'm a real estate person, business person who's involved daily basis with finances and planning.
Okay, and I've met your wife, and I guess you have a family. And
we do. We have 2 teenage boys.
Very good. Is there anything else about you personally you'd like to share with the voters?
Well, the theme of my campaign, John, is one town. I'm not running as the candidate for a particular group in town. I think we have shared values, and I think in recent years that sense of shared values has been lost sometimes. We get into debates about our priorities, which both sides of the debate come from a point of view of they're trying to do the best for Winchester. And what we really need at the Board of Selectmen's table, I think, is leadership that listens to people and helps form a consensus.
Yeah, now the first next group of questions I had was based on the interview you did with the Winchester Star, and you've led right into that with the one town, because that was one of the themes that you picked up in that interview. What is it you feel about your background that might allow you to contribute to bringing the town together?
Well, both in business but also in the volunteerism I've been involved with on many different committees. You deal with a range of people. You can call them stakeholders. In real estate, they would be landlords, city officials, tenants. You have to be able to listen to people. People do have divergent views, but someplace there is a middle ground. Somewhere there is a win-win, and you have to work at getting that. And it's really a skill set that involves planning, but also listening. And it's not just listening to the people who come before you, but sometimes it's reaching out to people who you might not normally contact or be talking directly with.
Okay, so one of the groups that you reached out to in that interview was you mentioned people 60 years and older, of which group I happen to be in. So what are you going to do for me?
Well, the schools have an increasing enrollment.
Yes.
And the senior population in our town is also growing. It's over 20% of the community. And that ranges all the way up to people in their 90s who are homebound. Last year, the original budget that was presented actually cut funding for a social worker for the Council on Elders.
Right.
That I didn't feel reflected our values at all, and we worked to restore that. But we also need to do more in terms of housing for the transition of life. There are many people who wish to stay in Winchester who in many ways are the people who built Winchester that we enjoy today. And I don't think we think about that segment of the population as much. And it's, again, trying to strike that balance in what we do.
So we've got a little bit of a binomial distribution here, with the older population growing and the school-age population growing. And you had mentioned in the article about how the school's demand curve was greater. And I was kind of wondering, why is that the schools are growing so much?
Well, I think the schools are a victim of their own success, quite frankly.
You know, it's funny you should say that, because Chuck Nurnberger used the same phrase yesterday.
Well, Chuck and I agree on a number of points, and that certainly would be one of them. They have had demonstrated success that is attracting families to Winchester, families with children. I'm not sure that I can affect the curve, but what we can be doing better is planning for that curve, understanding that curve. We've recently built schools that are now relatively new schools that are overpopulated. We're talking about more school building or renovations. We need to understand where we are, plan for it, and try to put the resources in place to handle that demand.
Right. I have so many things I want to ask you about, but one of them I wanted to ask you about was the role of the Board of Selectmen as a board of directors. I think you used that phrase, that you felt that they should set policy and then I think leave the town manager to run the town more. I don't know if that's what you meant, but perhaps you could expand on that point.
Sure. We're now talking about a $72 million budget, a $72 million business, if you will, with hundreds of professionals, with a school population that's grown over 9% in the last 5 years. You've got over 1 million square feet of buildings, 92 miles of road, and the Board of Selectmen simply can't be down in the weeds on a daily basis of the managerial details. That's why they hire a town manager. By the same token, the town manager doesn't run the town alone. What we need is a Board of Selectmen who works with their town manager. A town manager this board hired, recently gave a 5-0 vote of confidence to on his 1-year review, and yet when he brings forward a budget, they voted down the budget by a vote of 3-2.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, is if you had been on the Board of Selectmen, would you have voted against the town manager on that?
Hopefully, if I was on the Board of Selectmen...
I guess do you see it as a vote against the town manager, or do you just see it that the Selectmen felt more policy direction was needed?
Well, I think it's a vote that puzzles most voters. The 3 individuals who voted against the town manager's budget had 3 disparate reasons for doing so, and even had contradictory explanations within their explanations. Here's a board that works with their professional manager, again, who this board hired. This wasn't an individual they inherited from a prior board.
Right.
You work with them for a year. Ostensibly, you're working on planning, you're working on financial reporting, and you should be able to come to the end of a process where you have some consensus. If you don't have that consensus and then you're going out to the voters and asking for support, I think it's very confusing for people who are sitting, listening, reading, trying to understand what's going on.
Just one more question from your interview. Actually, in the interview, as reported, really only one of the candidates spoke about construction projects, and I wondered if you had any thoughts on construction projects. In your role as a finance committee, you must have heard about quite a few of them over the years.
Well, not only on the finance committee, but also on capital planning.
Yeah.
The number one thing that we have to do as it relates to building is to have a master plan. We're building, we're renovating, we're planning for, we're spending soft cost monies to bring in engineers and study, and we don't have a master plan that where do these pieces fit. Again, I think it's very confusing to the voters to be told we have no money, and yet as they drive around town they see different projects being done, and they're questioning what is the priority? Where is the roadmap? Why did this park get done before my child's school was expanded? Why is a new school being built before some other critical need is addressed?
And does the issue of the planner come in here somewhere? I know that this has been batted around over the years about
Well, I
whether we
think
should
it
get
does.
another planner or
I
not?
think it does. I think we're critically in need of enhanced planning resources, and the planning board, as it's now constituted, has really done some terrific work, doing terrific work with the hospital right now
with you.
on the
Yeah.
Washington Street site. And so the planning board that we have now would be tremendously augmented by additional planning resources, a zoning review, and a master plan.
Okay. Now I'd just like to move on to the cartoon. We didn't have quite the trouble that they did in Denmark over the cartoon here in Winchester, but there was a cartoon printed about the town race for the selectmen. I wondered if you'd care to comment on that at all.
Well, first of all, I was upset because it depicted me as having absolutely no hair at all.
And the viewers can plainly see that's
And
not true at all.
Absolutely not. I thought that was inaccurate. But seriously, I don't think that when you're involved with a debate or you're involved in a campaign like that, like the one we're in now, to caricature other people physically or for their ideas, it's not what my campaign is about, and it's not what I'm about.
Okay. You want to say any more about that?
I just don't think the cartoon was appropriate.
Okay, good. Transfer station. Linda Doucette is on the crew today, so we have to be very careful to say transfer station.
I know Norm well.
Do you use it?
I do use the transfer station.
What do you think about this idea of pay as you throw? And what other thoughts do you have on the transfer station?
Well, the transfer station is an issue that I've been involved with both on the Solid Waste Study Committee but also on the Finance Committee, to the point that people hope that the words transfer station won't be mentioned because it might set Roger off to be talking about it. But as it relates to pay as you throw, pay as you throw has been very successful in a number of communities. There is no cookie cutter plan for pay as you throw. It has many attributes that are worthwhile. It tends to reduce the amount of trash in the waste stream, which reduces our town cost for disposal. Tends to increase recycling, and those recycled materials can raise revenues for the town. It's a fairer program in many ways because those who deliver less trash to the transfer station pay less than those who may produce more trash. But having said that, the current configuration of the transfer station will require capital investment to make pay as you throw, if we were to choose to go in that direction, viable or practical. And so I think it's something that absolutely worthy of study, and I would urgently suggest that we ought to be studying.
Okay, now we're moving towards the end of our time here. I know it goes so quickly.
Right.
But I want to ask you a couple more questions.
Sure.
First of all, with regard to the override, if you are elected onto the Board of Selectmen, would you expect in the next 3 years to be voting in favor of placing an override before the voters?
I think it's critical that the voters have a say in how we manage our affairs. But I would tell you that at the current time, the number one task of any new Board of Selectmen, and if I'm lucky enough to be one of those, would be to reestablish credibility of that board and of our budgeting and financial process. Right now, when you look at the last override vote and the margin by which it was defeated, people do not have a fundamental belief in the numbers, in what they're being told. And there was a strong sense that, quote, they always find the money. And we went through a budget season last year that I think from a credibility point of view was absolutely disastrous. To come into Springtown meeting and have the Board of Selectmen voting a budget at 6 p.m. before it goes to town meeting and, quote, newfound monies just being spent. We need long-term planning, and we need to start that on day one, not the following spring.
Okay, thank you very much. I just got one more request. If you anything else you would like to say to the voters as they make up their decision about whether to vote for you or not?
Well, first, I want to thank you, John, and WinCamp for sponsoring these talks. The election is on Tuesday, March 28th. Everybody has 2 votes. I'd ask for people's support for Roger Berman for Selectman on March 28th, and ask you to do something good for Winchester and vote for one town. Thank you.
And so, Roger, thank you very much for coming, and I guess I can say good luck, because I'm going to say good luck to everybody.
Terrific. Thank you, John.
Okay, now we have Ellen Burkhart, who is also a candidate for the Board of Selectmen. Ellen is probably best known for her work over the years at the town meeting. Ellen, welcome to WinCam.
Thank you, John, and thank you to WinCam for hosting this.
Okay, now this first group of questions is a little bit of things about you,
Sure.
Where you went to school, things like that.
I've been a town meeting member, John, for about 15 years. I grew up in Winchester. I went to Parkhurst when it was an elementary school. I went to Lynch. I went to Commonwealth in Boston. Then I went to Harvard, which was a joy. Then I moved to Washington. Then I went to Georgetown and got a law degree. So
Okay.
bio in 30 seconds. Work on the town. My issues have really always...
You're in Precinct 3, aren't you?
I am,
Yeah,
yes.
were you not like the chair of the Precinct 3 committee?
I was chair of the Precinct 3 town meeting member committee for many years.
Quite a few
My
years, yeah.
colleagues were kind enough to vote me into that spot, so that was nice.
Yeah, I think I had the honor to do that.
That's
once
right.
or
You were a
twice
colleague,
myself,
exactly. Right.
yeah. So you gave me a real fast run through your background. So you grew up where, did you say?
I grew up on Albemarle Road, where my family still lives.
Okay.
Went to school here for some years. Went to high school in Boston. Went to Harvard after that. Concentrated in history. Graduated with honors. And then went to Washington and worked on Capitol Hill for
Really?
a Senate Select Committee, which was terrific when you were a young college kid and thought the world was your oyster. Worked for a number of senators who are no longer with us, Scoop Jackson, Daniel Patrick Moynihan. Had some clearances on the committee, and it was a good experience.
Right. So you've lived all your life in Winchester, apart from that.
Exactly.
that period.
Space of time in Washington, a couple years at Georgetown for law school, and then I came back. I missed Boston.
And where do you live in Winchester?
Now I live on Crescent Road. which
Crescent
is
Road, yes. I know.
Over by the
where-
Lincoln
yeah,
School.
yeah, that's
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Bought my house in '88. As everyone with older houses will know, it's a continuing labor of love. It never ends, but that's okay.
I know it very well.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you and the other candidates had an interview with the Winchester Star, and I put together a few questions. I hope it's all right if I ask those questions.
Of course.
Yeah. So, one of the things you said was that government is not well served when there's a tight clique in controlling the decision flow. Are you suggesting that's the current situation, and could you give me an example?
Sure. I think the town needs a fresh perspective, John. I think you do well when you get all points of view at the table. We have, for a long time, had one focus in the town, and that has driven us into some budget difficulties that I think we really need to address. My issues have always been disclosure and credibility. When you put everybody at the table and you solicit the points of view of all parties, then I think you can build the base that lets you go forward. And that's part of why I'm running. I think a fresh look, some new blood. I'm not the status quo. And that's part of what I'm hoping the voters will take a look at.
One of the things that you also said is that there are great needs in the budget, and if you fund one need at the exclusion of another, the whole town suffers. So you're talking about the large proportion of the money that goes into the school budget here.
It's unavoidable to talk about that, John, and I think the town is well served when people put the money issue front and center. You can have a very good discussion on the policy when two things happen. When you know what the real budget numbers are, and that's been part of our struggle for the last years. The budget has been a bit fluid. Numbers pop up at the last moment, revenue estimates change. It's very tough to put together a plan for a town with as many needs as we have when you have that level of uncertainty and non-transparency in the budget. That's part of what I'm hoping for. I'll give you an example. The library is a spectacular building. It's run by a wonderful staff. They're extremely efficient, and it should be open on Sunday. It would serve the town well to have it open on Sunday.
And why do you feel that it should be open on Sunday?
Because I think it is a jewel of a resource. Everybody uses it, and the relative cost of opening it on Sunday versus not is minuscule. It would cost about $30,000 to open the library on Sunday. The town has a budget of about $72 million. My hope is there's a way to bridge that gap because the value to everybody would be extraordinary.
It seems to me from my years on the town meeting that each year somebody puts money forward for the library, and then somehow or other it seems to get cut out before the end.
Town meeting doesn't support that, and I have a problem with that, to be honest. I think that is a classic example of a use that would help everybody, and if you said, yep, we're going to make that as baseline a use as a lot of other uses, you start to build the view that you represent everyone.
It's hard to make the argument that you're really in favor of education if you don't have the library that's open, right?
I couldn't agree more, John. I mean, I think it's a building that sort of inch for inch you have people learning in all capacities, and that's a very valuable commodity.
Okay, and I'd like to go on to some general questions.
Sure, sure.
At the recent Selectmen's meeting on the town budget, the town manager brought forward a budget, and the Selectmen voted on that, and it got voted down 3-2, I think for a number of different reasons. If you had been on the Board of Selectmen, have you any idea how you might have voted on that issue?
I do. I would have supported the town manager, John. The charter gives the town manager the authority and the responsibility to produce the opening budget document. I would have supported him in that effort. He is someone who really gets into the details of all of the departments of the town. That's what we pay him for. Right. And I would have supported his budget, and then if there's further discussion, that's appropriate. But to take the position, as I think the majority of the board did, that he was off by many hundreds of thousands of dollars and they want to rearrange big chunks of that number, that makes you wonder what the whole budget process up to that point was all about. But again, I'm in favor of discussion. The more you discuss it, I don't think you can have too much budget information, John. I'm a securities lawyer. I mean, we'll get into this later, but disclosure is in my blood. And I think that the more information you give the town and the more forums you have for the town to understand what is going on, the better off everybody will be.
Okay, well, you raised the issue of the securities lawyer. I mean, how does the background of the securities lawyer seem to be helpful to the town, would you think?
I own my own law firm. I opened it about 10 years ago, and I represent private companies doing complex commercial transactions. It is, as I said in the Star, I work at the intersection of business and law and finance. The town enters into many complex contracts. They have many complex commercial relationships. In the past, we have not always had great representation on the town side, and we paid a price for that.
Can I follow up on that
Sure,
a moment?
Yeah.
Are you talking here with the town council?
I think if you look at some of the big agreements the town has entered into, like the Neswick agreement for the public, the dump, or the transfer station.
Well, that's really going back in history at this time, right?
Exactly. Another one I would look at is Winning Farm. I think Winning Farm is not serving the town well. It is very tough in this economic climate.
Now, when you say Winning Farm is not serving the town well, you mean the deal that was struck to do whatever we're doing with Winning Farm?
The idea that we are, or the concept, or the deal, as you put it, to sell 12 acres of land, 12 and a half acres of land for $1.5 million, I think does the town a great disservice. When you look at the Pansy Patch, which is the chunk of land across from Mahoney's, 7 acres of buildable land sold for $7 million about 2 months ago. There is,
of course, there's a difference in time, isn't there, between the two events?
There is, and that's part of my point about the documents. The Winning Farm contract was extended by the Selectmen for many years for free, and the town has paid a price for that. And that's where I think a knowledge of the commercial world will be helpful.
Okay, I see. Very good. Now, just to hit on a little bit of local controversy, if you like. The issue of the cartoon.
Oh, the famous cartoon.
The cartoon was printed. You wrote a letter. Is there any more you want to say on that subject?
I think my letter and Peter Haley's letter pretty much summed it up. I thought Peter's letter was gracious and thoughtful and accurate, and I wrote him a note saying I appreciated his letter. My hope is the Star has now realized that the readers would like to know who's behind whatever editorial point of view you put out. I think that's a good baseline. Have the author's address, as you do for letters, and if the author has a preference, have that out there too. And then people are judging the result fairly. But I think we've dealt with that one.
Okay. Going on, I think you may have touched on budget issues and transfer station and so on. Do you personally use the transfer station?
I love the transfer station. I am frequently at the transfer station. For those of us without a garage, the transfer station is a gift because you don't have to keep your trash in your sunroom. You can just take it right down.
That swap shop is how to beat, isn't it?
It is, yes, and books, and it's plus it's the social hub of the town on Saturday morning.
Okay,
It's
now
excellent.
there are plans out there about to do various things with the transfer station. Pay as you throw has been one of those things I've been hearing about. What do you think about that?
I would not support pay as you throw, John, for this reason. It is a service that the town provides. And if the town provides it, the town should provide it to everyone. It shouldn't charge people for the service. I actually have an issue with the school department charging people for athletics. I think if you're going to run the program, you make it open to people and you don't have entrance fees for 4 or 5 kids, which get pretty expensive. So I would not support pay as you throw. I would, however, support a very expanded and more carefully structured, if you will, program on the commercial side, because there was a stretch of time where our commercial hauling calculations, if you will, were not very accurate, and the town was losing money on that front.
Right.
We need to be efficient, John. We need to run the town like a 21st century company.
Okay, well, let's go into that efficiency issue
Sure.
and the override question.
Sure.
You know, every few years, sometimes every year, we have an override vote. And recently, they've been mostly voted down. Now, if you were elected onto the Board of Selectmen, would you expect to be placing an override before the voters in the next 3 years?
Certainly not in the next 2. And until I got really deeply into the budget, if I were fortunate enough to be elected, it's hard to look out for 3. But I don't think we tax our way out of this problem, John. You don't add 5 or 6% to the budget every year and solve the issue. The voters probably don't get into all the numbers, but the town raises about $5 million every year more than the year before. So this year the budget is $72 million. Next year the budget's going to be closer to $77 million. Those are substantial numbers, and I think we need to look very thoughtfully at how we spend and account for that money before we go out and say, give us more. Because that's the credibility issue.
Alan, I have to, just a reality issue here.
Sure,
You said you'd like to see the library open 7 days a week. You'd like not to be charging for, you don't want the pay as you throw, and you think the athletics budget should not be charged for. So that implies that implies that some considerable increase in efficiency or more money.
Right.
Where do you think the efficiency is on that?
One example, John, and again, it's tough to get into all of the details, in a short program.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
The superintendent's budget at the school department, the administrative side, this isn't teachers, this isn't classroom, this is the administrative side of the superintendent's budget, has gone up 15% in the last 2 years. Now, there are very few companies in America who are taking their administrative overhead and increasing it by 7% a year.
Right.
That's just not happening.
Right.
And I can't say how you would fix that number or perhaps address it differently, but I would suggest that all budgets are about priorities. We all make those decisions every day. We all have limited resources. And those are the questions we got to start asking.
Ellen, I'm afraid we're down to our last minute, so I was going to give you a chance to make a closing statement for the voters, if you would care to do that.
Thank you.
And then we'll wrap up after that.
Appreciate it, John. I'm Ellen Burkhart. The election is March 28th. I would very much appreciate your vote. I'm not the status quo, citizens of Winchester. I'm the challenger. And one of the things I think is very interesting is you can tell when the political winds are starting to shift, because the vocabulary and the issues that the candidates use start to resemble those of the challenger. I think that's good. People are talking about openness and one town and transparency and disclosure and accuracy in the budget. Those are all issues I care deeply about. And I think it is a lovely place to live. I think it deserves first quality management, and I would welcome your support and your help on the 28th. Thank you, and thanks to WinCam.
And thank you very much for coming down to the studio.
My pleasure, John.
It's really super to have you here.
It was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Access is empowerment.
Access is technology.
Access is involvement.
Access is expression.
Access is community.
Access is fun.
Access is knowledge.
Access is democracy.
Access
is free speech. Please be part of the Access experience. Contact your local Access Center for more information.
So our fourth guest is Peter Haley. Peter Haley is perhaps best known for his work on the school committee and also as chairman of the school committee. And I've certainly seen him on town meeting floor giving very convincing and articulate arguments for excellence in education. Peter, welcome to WinCam.
Thank you very much, John. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Okay. The first group of questions we have is something about your background in Winchester here. Perhaps you could tell us, what was it now, about your work, for example?
Sure, I served
Work for the town, you know?
I served on the school committee from 1998 to 2004, and I've also been a town meeting member since then. And while I've been on the town meeting, I've served on the Financial Reporting Study Committee, and I've also served on Capital Planning Committee as a member of the school committee, and around town I'm a director of the Community Service Foundation.
So you've done a lot of things here in town.
I've had an opportunity to participate in a lot of things and enjoy doing so.
Great. And you've lived in the town quite a while, I think.
I have, yes. My family moved to Winchester in 1962, and I was raised and educated here. In 1992, my wife Marie and I moved back, the parents of two young children, to educate our children here.
Okay. So you went to Winchester High School, and then you went on elsewhere, I take it?
Yes, I graduated from Winchester High School in 1976, and I went on, actually did a postgraduate year of high school, prep school in New Jersey. I then went to Northwestern University and received my law degree from Boston College.
Great. And now you work as a lawyer? Or, what do you do at the moment?
I'm a lawyer in a small firm in Boston, and I'm a partner in the firm Gordon Haley.
Gordon Haley. Okay. What kind of work do you do?
My practice is concentrated in business reorganization and business litigation.
Okay. And where do you live in Winchester?
We live on Wood Lane off of Arlington Street, and I grew up on Pilgrim Drive. Okay. I went to Vincent Owen School.
Okay. And which precinct are you from?
Precinct 5.
Okay. And is there anything else you'd like to tell the viewers about yourself before we get into the issue questions?
Well, I think in some respects my practice as a lawyer has skill sets which are well suited to the Board of Selectmen. I'm called upon to evaluate financial statements and business plans and then to articulate those to others. So I think a lot of the skills involved in that are also skills which would be suitable to the board.
Very good. Now, the next group of questions is based on the responses to the Winchester Star interview of a week or so back now. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Now, the first question I developed is fairly complex, so I'm going to read it.
Okay.
Because I want to get it exactly right. In the Star interview, you said that Winchester had a strong commitment to young and old alike, from school children to taxpayers. And the school committee, which you're, in my view anyway, you're best known for, tends obviously to focus on the young and their parents. As a selectman, you would be representing the entire community. So I imagine that your views may evolve with time if you were a selectman, and you might perhaps think of a slightly different allocation of emphasis between the municipal side and the school side. Did you care to comment on that?
Well, I think the roles of the two boards are very different. I think the school committee's job is to responsibly convey to the town meeting what the costs are of providing an education to the children in the school system. And I think that the Board of Selectmen's job is more to be a leadership board, to lead the whole town, and to provide for the town some guidance and direction on a number of issues. But in some respects, I think it's a little bit of a fiction that the process in town is schools versus municipal, or that it's one side versus another side. Winchester is a town in which most people own their own homes. We collectively have real estate values assessed at over $4 billion in Winchester, and the one thing that drives those values is the quality of the public school system. So I'm not
the biggest thing anyway.
I think it is, and most studies would indicate that. So I think that it's not just young people and the parents of school children who have a direct interest in the quality of the public school system. Also, I think it's important to realize that of the budget, the town has 680 employees. 430 of those employees are school employees. There isn't a single other department that even has 100 employees. So by reason of the numbers alone, the primary function of government and the primary use of the dollars in Winchester is for education. So I think it's important that we maintain that focus and that we make budget decisions with all interests of the town in mind.
Okay, very good. I need to move on here. One of the things that you said was that it was important for the selectmen to have accurate information or provide accurate information. Was there any particular areas you were thinking about when you made that statement?
Well, I think one thing is that the town has lagged on completing its audit. The audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2004 was not completed till December 15th, 2005. Over 18 months since the fiscal year ended. So I think we need to do a better job on that, and I think the selectmen, by recently talking about putting together an audit committee, are doing that. I think also we need to keep our eye on what's happening to the dollars that we're accumulating. We're running a budget surplus every year, and why we're doing that is that by reason of the March 2002 override, a lot of funds are accumulating in the Building Stabilization Fund. And I think it's important that we identify that for people and talk about the best way to use those dollars.
Very good. One of the other issues you spoke about was energy and healthcare costs. Did you have any particular thoughts on I mean, I think everybody recognizes that energy and healthcare is a budget buster. Do you have any thoughts on where we might save, or anything specific you thought about doing for those?
Sure. The energy budget in 2004, the actual budget was $1.6 million. In the next budget for 2007, it's $3 million. I think one thing that we could do, a simple thing we could do, is segregate the energy costs by department. If I'm the principal of the Ambrose School and in my budget is the energy budget for that school, and I know if I can save on that budget, I can use those dollars elsewhere, I think it provides a great motivation for people to follow an energy policy, which I think it's important that we have one and articulate one.
So you have the kids coming in their coats all day?
Well, you know, not so much so that you'd reduce the functionality of the building, but I do think that sort of, if you're paying the energy bill in your house, I know I'm quick to turn the thermostat down.
Me too.
So
turn the lights off
too.
too.
We do that, right.
You also said that personnel dollars should be studied. What were you thinking of when you mentioned that in the interview?
We've spent a lot of money on computerization. The data management budget for the next year is $383,000. If we're spending that money, and we've spent almost $1 million on the Munis software system, the goal of software systems and technology is to, in many respects, eliminate manual tasks. And in doing that, we should be eliminating personnel dollars in part. Right. The new water meters are a good example. We're reading water meters from the street now. We have a new system for that. That should mean that we don't need as much manpower to go and read all those meters. I think it's important that when we make those investments in technology, we follow up and make sure that we're realizing the personnel gains.
Construction projects. Have you any thoughts on what construction projects the town should be doing in the next 3 years?
I think the Building Stabilization Fund is pretty well set out. The next online project isn't scheduled to start until 2010. There are some repairs. I think the town's going to be working on Manchester Field, which I think will benefit everybody. I'm not sure if there are any other projects that I'd be an advocate for, although I have to say that I would not be as dismissive of the concerns of John Nash. I found John Nash, the fire chief, to be an extremely level-headed and intelligent guy, not someone to fly off on any one project if he doesn't think it's merited. And while I understand the pressures on the budget, I wouldn't be as dismissive of his call to look closely at a new fire station.
Okay. I'd like to move on to some more general questions now.
Sure.
And these are the questions I've asked the other candidates as well. On the February 13th Board of Selectmen meeting, there was a 3-2 vote against the town manager's budget. If you had been a selectman, which way do you think you would have voted and why?
I wouldn't have voted. I don't know why the Board of I don't know why the Board of Selectmen, and I think I may have been able to bring everyone else to the same position. I don't know why the Board of Selectmen's voting on the town manager budget. They don't need to do that. They shouldn't be doing that. And what it's created is an extremely divisive situation where we have 6 budgets, one for each of the selectmen and one for the town manager. Town manager is an employee of the Board of Selectmen, and I think that the board needs to work with him to develop a budget that they can all agree on. I think this year some of the problems were they didn't start early enough, and the budget they were talking about was not a line item budget when they were voting on it. It was just a budget segregated in departmental segments, but not by line item. And I think that there wasn't any reason for that vote, and I think it was detrimental to the budget process.
Okay. The Star had this now infamous political cartoon. I wondered if you had any thoughts or comments on it. You did write a letter to the Star, I know. Do you want to say any more on that?
I did. I mean, I think that if you're a politician, you sort of need to dismiss all that and let it run off your back. Unfortunately, I'm not a politician, so I think we're a little bit better than that. It was unremarkable for most state and national, but locally, I don't think that we need to be identifying people in that way. I think we need to recognize that all the people involved are people who are volunteers, putting in a lot of time for the town and have put in a lot of time for the town. I don't agree with each of the other candidates on everything that they stand for, but I do have a deep respect for each of them, as well as the fellow who authored the cartoon, Roger Wilson, who's put in a tremendous amount of time. And I just don't think that we need to be doing that to further what we're doing in town.
Okay. Transfer station, there's been some discussion about pay-as-you-throw. I wonder whether you have any views on that or anything else about the transfer station. Do you use the transfer station?
I do, every Saturday, the same routine as everyone else. The news stores, D'Agostino, and the dump. But
geez, what time do you go? I never see you. I know that's my day too.
I'm later in the day.
Okay.
But I think pay-as-you-throw is great. There are over 100 communities in Massachusetts using it. It's encouraged by the state and the federal government. It does three things. It reduces the amount of waste that the town collects. It promotes environmental usability and sustainability. It provides additional income, and also it's a very equitable program because those who are, especially senior citizens who may not have as much trash, are going to end up paying less than those people who have a lot of trash. Both the state and federal government encourage communities to adopt it. It's been successful where it has been adopted. I think it's a good program.
Very good. If you were, we've probably got just a couple of minutes left now, so just maybe two more questions.
Sure.
If you were elected to the Board of Selectmen, do you expect to vote in favor of placing an override vote before the voters in the next 3 years?
I think that's a little bit more of a political question than a practical question, because overrides are not generic things. And I think nobody wants an override because it means your taxes are going to go up. On the other hand, I think it's important that if an override's going to pass, three things need to happen. One, people need to be convinced that they trust the way you're using the government dollars that you do have. Two, that you've exhausted all other remedies. And three, that they buy into and agree with you on the values that underlie that request. Right now, I don't think we have any of those three factors present, so I think override talk is a little premature and unrealistic. I wouldn't, overrides are things that only work if the people are going to vote for them, and I don't think right now that we're in that situation. If we get to that point, I'd certainly support an override.
Do you ever watch WinCam, and what do you think of WinCam? Is there anything we might do better at WinCam in your view?
Sure, I watch WinCam a lot. I watch the committee meetings from time to time and the sports events. I think one thing WinCam could do would be do more of this and do it at greater length. I think this race is an important race for the town, and I think that we could spend more time talking about these things.
I desperately would like to spend half an hour with you rather than 15 minutes, but
we
felt it would be a little bit tough on people to sit for 2 hours listening to this discussion.
I'm sure that's the case.
Yeah. Okay, so I'd just like to give you a chance now just to address the voters directly. So.
Sure. I believe that government exists to serve those who are governed. I think the Board of Selectmen in Winchester needs to commit itself to preparing financial information in a timely, transparent, and complete manner. And I think it's important that those who seek to lead commit themselves to the notion of service to others by respecting and listening to the input of all members of the community. I make that commitment to each of you. In turn, I ask each of you two things. One, that you vote for me on March 28th, and two, and more importantly, that you join me in the belief that town government is something that can and will make a difference in the lives of each of us and in the lives of our children, friends, and neighbors. Thank you, John. Thank you, WinCam, for this opportunity.
And on behalf of WinCam, I'd like to thank you, Peter, very much. Thanks for coming down. So you can see that we have 4 very well qualified candidates for the 2 seats that are open on the Board of Selectmen. Of course, on March 28th, there are other choices to make, including Town Moderator, Assessor, Board of Health, Planning Board, school committee, and of course, town meeting members. This is an important election, and you owe it to yourself and your family in the town to get out and vote. If you expect to be away from the town that day, you can stop by in advance at the town hall and pick up an absentee ballot form. But anyway, please vote on March 28th, and don't forget to tune in to WinCam's coverage of the election. We'll have Alan Iden and Alan McDonald here at 8 o'clock to provide election coverage, and we'll have a political analyst over at the town hall. So, please watch us, and thanks for watching this program tonight.